Let's talk about a guy. Dan, where does Baty fit in on the 2026 Mets?
He fits. I know that because the versatility plays, right? Where you're talking about third base, whether you're talking about second base. But I think a lot of it is also going to be contingent upon what's happening with Pete Alonso. Are they going to be able to bring him back into the mix? Because let's face it, I think offensively, if Pete is playing somewhere else, you're going to have to replace that production. And yeah, Baty was awesome in the second half of the season. And as a Met fan, you really want to believe that what you saw in the second half this year is going to continue over into next season and beyond with consistent at-bats. So I think the Alonso factor is number one. Maybe the Mets decide, hey, you know what, let's maybe go get a guy like Alex Bregman, plug him at third base. You want to kick then Baty over to second. Okay, does that block Jet Williams possibly for coming up? So there's so many variables, but the fact that he's young, still very controllable, and he has that versatility, Brett Baty's got a spot on this roster, absolutely.
Oh, see, I was going to say that, listen, maybe this hot second half is your chance to sell high on Brett Baty, which is not to say that I don't believe he can't sustain it. If you look at his full season stats, a lot of the expected numbers were better than the overall stats by the end of the season. But I just think that, we've talked about this so much on this show. You kind of have this glut of guys who play the infield who are not super great defenders and are not super reliable offensive producers. And you're right, a lot of it does hinge on what happens with Pete Alonso, because that's a huge amount of offensive production, but a little bit of a defensive black hole. And so do you need to prioritize the defense or do you need to prioritize the offense elsewhere? All of that understood. I do think maybe this is a chance to move on from one of the members of Vientos, Baty, Mauricio. You can't keep all of them indefinitely, and Baty's hot second half is a chance to sell high.
Yeah, I think you dangle those guys and you see what's out there. I don't think you're getting Baty for Scooble straight up or anything crazy like that, right? But you try to see, do other teams believe? Are teams overvaluing what he can bring? I think, if you get, let's say, a Cody Bellinger and a Bregman, do you not really need him? Can you flip him for someone else? Because everyone knows the priority is pitching, right? They need pitching. This team needs pitching. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 priority. So I'm a little less concerned about what they're going to do in the field. But I do think for a guy like Baty, you can look in and see, do teams want him? How do they value him? So I think for a young player, if he goes out and has a decent spring training and you're like, we're not really buying this, but we can maybe flip him, then you should look into it. If they upgrade enough, then I think you keep him.
The case study also, too, was, remember, Vientos shot out of a cannon in 24, little bit of a step back this year, right? I mean, Sal being nice.
Yes, I know, I figured that.
And it was disappointing, right? So if Baty then doesn't follow up on it and comes out of the gate slow again, because his first half wasn't great this year, as to Britt's point, the other name I'll throw in there, too, Jeff McNeil. Is he going to be on this roster next year? You know what I mean? That's a versatile player that you're also going to have to make up for all of those spots on the diamond.
Yeah, and I think Baty had a useful season, as we said, could be a useful piece. They also could do better. Baty showed some promise, had a good second half. Okay, you're trying to win a World Series or not. I'm not saying you have to get rid of him, but he certainly shouldn't be tied down.
I think that this is a little bit of media and fans whipping this into a frenzy when it was undeserved. So Dombrowski's comments were surprisingly candid, but they were pretty hard to argue with. He essentially said Bryce Harper had a down year for Bryce Harper. First of all, he used Freddie Freeman as a comp for guys having down years, so Freddie Freeman catching strays. But his point was these players age, they get into their 30s, and they're already on the decline.
Right.
Imagine 40 years.
All right.
And I was surprised to see sort of how candid Dombrowski was, where he was like, we'll have to see whether this is indicative of kind of a wholesale decline or if this was an aberration year. And then a lot of people reacted to that by being like, is this an indication that the Phillies are going to trade Bryce Harper? Which, first of all, no, it was not. And Dave Dombrowski was unequivocal, going on several different media outlets to say, absolutely not. I didn't intend to sort of start these trade rumors. But also, if they were going to trade him, that would be a terrible strategy to just sort of tank his value right before they tried to trade him. And then Matt Gelb of The Athletic spoke to Harper, who, again, delightfully candid in how he felt about the trade rumors. He was very explicit in his comments to Matt Gelb that what bothered him was all of the trade rumors, because he didn't like getting those kinds of conversations swirling around him when he was in D.C., and so he went out of his way and against his agent Scott Boras's advice when he signed the contract in Philly to not have any opt-outs, full no trade clause. He's a little bit corny, but he's committed to Philly, and I like that, and I understand why he was bothered by the trade rumors, but I just don't think that this was necessarily Dave Dombrowski's fault. I don't think Dave Dombrowski said anything that made me think Bryce Harper was going to get traded.
Also, you can't trade Bryce Harper. He's an aging slugger who now plays first base. Like, there's just not really a market to pay him even close to what he's making. Him not getting the opt-out and wanting to stay in Philly was nice. It shows that he's loyal to Philly. It cost him a ton of money, guys, long term. Like, he wanted to go in and renegotiate that deal a couple years ago, I heard, and the Phillies are like, no, you signed it. There's a reason why these deals have opt-outs. So I think it's a huge to do. We're talking about it because it's late October and there's not a whole lot going on. He's not getting traded. Dombrowski is an old school GM and that he still kind of says exactly what's on his mind. The newer school of baseball operations do not say that kind of stuff, and that's why people were so jarred. Like, oh my God, he gave us an honest opinion, which is what we want, and then we rip him for it. So now we're not going to get an honest opinion anymore.
Well,
that's why we can't have nice things.
And if you know anything about Dave Dombrowski, he's a guy who is always all in and going for it. So he's not looking to rebuild or stack the farm system. I mean, he's a guy that usually when he leaves a job, leaves your farm system in tatters. This team is a win-now team. They need Bryce Harper to win. And you know what? If you're going to sit here and worry about his value, you should never sign him to, a 15-year contract, which you knew was not going to age well.
Yeah, you know what I think of the Bryce Harper situation? I think that sounds like a them problem. Good for them. We have enough problems here. Good with their window maybe closing. Schwarber, free agent. Bryce, maybe a little dissension there. I'm here for it.